Hi, hello, and mabuhay! Welcome to another episode of Behind the Veil, the podcast that dives into the mysteries and conspiracies surrounding development communication theories. I am Glendy, and today we're tackling one of the most discussed and, let's be honest, controversial theories in development communication, the modernization theory. And to help us unpack, I have here with me a very special guest, Ashley Eunice Perlihera, a fellow BA communication student who's also studying development communication. Hi, Ash!
Hi, Bae. Oh my God, Glendy, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I'm so excited to talk about this topic because it's one of those theories that's super influential, yet very controversial in so many ways. Like, laging my aha and huh and moments when you dive into it.
Exactly. Alam mo, habang ginagawa ko yung research for this episode, naalala ko yung unang beses kong na-encounter yung modernization theory, and it was in one of Ma'am Ruby's lecture in our course, Development Communication, and wow, this makes so much sense for me. Pero nung nag-delve deeper na, parang ang dami-daming blind spots, ano? Like, did you have a similar experience?
Ay, oo, Bae. When I first studied it, it sounded like parang roadmap. Parang, like, ganito pala yung mag-develop. But nung nag-start din akong i-apply siya sa real life, the cracks became obvious. Like, it's not as straightforward as the theory makes it seem. And honestly, some applications of it are really problematic ba ya?
Yeah, I agree. So, pero bago natin i-dissect yung mga problema, let's start from the basics. So, back then, during our lectures in development communication, parang nag-quick view about the three theories of development communication, right? The theories, yeah. It includes the modernization theory, the dependency theory, as well as the sustainable development theory. So, para sa mga listeners natin na hindi pa masyadong familiar, could you break down what modernization theory is all about?
Okay. So, essentially, modernization theory argues that societies progress through a linear process of development. Sa traditional societies, which are often agrarian and community-based, nag-transform siya into modern ones which shows na urbanized na siya, industrialized na siya, and individualistic pa. This theory became popular after World War II, during a time when newly independent countries were trying to figure out what their development paths are. So scholars thought that these nations could catch up with Western countries by adopting Western economic and political systems.
So parang may step-by-step guide lang, no? Like, start with A, move to V, tapos eventually, you'll reach Z. But that's not how life works. Realistically, napaka-linear ng approach.
Exactly nga. Kaya, yung pagka-linear nun, yun yung nagbibigay ng criticism sa theory na yun. Kaya, societies baga kasi are complex and dynamic. Like, they don't follow the same path silang lahat. Like, what works for one country might not work for the other. Kaya, yung mga development strategies based on this theory, minsan nag-fail nag-address ng local realities. Like you said, unrealistic nga siya.
And speaking of local realities, ang isang obvious flaw dito is its Eurocentric lens. Yung parang sinasabi niya na ang Western model is the ultimate goal for everyone. And how do you feel about that?
Doon na feeling ko, it's where the theory becomes arrogant and damaging because it frames non-Western societies as backward and implies that they need to catch up daw. But yung sinasabi lang traditional societies, it has their own wisdom, strengths, na nadi-disregard. Kaya nakakalungkot kasi, instead of empowering these communities na to, ang nangyayari is nagkakaroon ng cultural erasure ba ya?
So alam mo ba, naalala ko tuloy yung kwento ng lola ko. She used to tell me how their community used to solve problems na hindi reliant on other modernized things, modernized tool, walang high-tech solutions, pero napaka-innovative nila in their own way. Now, a lot of those practices are seen as old-fashioned kahit na very effective naman sila. Ang irony, di ba?
Ay talaga. Like, I've seen this play out nung development projects din na there was this one project na I worked on that aimed to introduce modern farming techniques to rural communities. Sa papel, ang ganda, maganda pakinggan. Pero pagdating sa ground, yung farmers, hindi naman nila magamit yung equipment nila kasi walang kuryente. Plus, it made their traditional method seem inferior. Kaya na-sustainable naman yung ginagawa nila.
Grabe naman talaga. Parang instead of progress, nagiging source of frustration pa. And this brings us to one of the conspiracy theories surrounding the modernization theory. Some people argue that hindi na lang siya simpleng development framework. Rather, it's a way for powerful nations to maintain control. What's your take on that?
I think may katotohanan naman talaga dun sa take na yun. Kasi during the Cold War, for example, Western countries used modernization theory to promote capitalism and democracy, not necessarily because those were the best options for developing nations, but because it aligned with their geopolitical goals. Foreign aid, for example, it often came with conditions that benefited the donor countries more than the recipients. Di ba? Ang unfair?
So parang may hidden agenda, di ba?
Yes.
So instead of helping countries stand on their own, it's more like they're being molded into a specific image. Like, in my opinion, yung image na being reliant to the other countries, yung mga mas modernized na countries, parang mas, yung, kumbaga, dito papasok yung dependency theory. I mean, kung bakit kinounter siya ng dependency theory. And speaking of molding, ang laki ng role ng media dito. Let's talk about how modernization theory influenced development communication strategies.
So, media actually played a huge role in that matter. Kasi back in the 1950s and 1960s, governments and organizations believed that mass communication could educate people and accelerate modernization. Kaya nagkaroon ng maraming campaigns through radio, TV, and print that promoted Western values. From consumerism to individualism, lahat-lahat nila, pinadaan nila sa media noon. And while some of these campaigns had positive outcomes like promoting health awareness, others naman were outright attempts at cultural assimilation.
What? Cultural assimilation? Parang naging tool ng propaganda. And it's fascinating and disturbing at the same time. Pero I'm very curious, do you think we've moved away from this top-down approach as we're in the Philippines and we're Filipinos and, parang malayo tayo from other modernized countries?
To some extent, yes. Kasi sa panahon natin ngayon, there's more emphasis on participatory communication where communities are involved in decision-making process. Like theories like dependency and post-colonial theory, they have also challenged the assumptions of modernization theory. Pero to be honest, nakikita pa kasi natin yung remnants nito, especially in how some international organizations operate.
I totally agree with that. Pero alam mo, while preparing for this episode, I couldn't help but reflect on my own experiences as a communicator and as a communication student. There's always this pressure to present ideas in a way that aligns with Western standards. Have you felt this in your own work?
Oh my God, yes, all the time, lagi. Like, even in academia, there's this unspoken rule na ang research mo will be taken more seriously if it uses Western frameworks. Like, ang unfair niya, and it's frustrating because it devalues local knowledge and perspectives.
Exactly. Kaya nga, I feel strongly about finding a balance, learning from global ideas while staying grounded in our own context. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's not just possible, it's necessary actually. Kasi we need to redefine development in a way that's inclusive and respectful of different cultures. Like, progress shouldn't mean erasing who we are, diba?
But rather, I think progress is about uplifting what we've already built on. Diba?
Yeah, yung empowerment yung importante.
So given all these challenges, what do you think is the way forward for development communication? How can we avoid repeating the same mistakes of modernization theory?
I think it starts with listening. Kasi development shouldn't be about imposing solutions. It should be about empowering communities to create their own paths. And syempre, as communicators, we have a responsibility to challenge narratives that perpetuate inequality.
Yeah, I agree. That's such an important point. Development isn't a one-size-fits-all process. It's messy, complex, and mahirap siya, and it's very and deeply personal. Kaya nga, this conversation is so important. And so far, I'm very much enjoying this. And
Me too.
any final thoughts for our listeners, Ash?
Sa akin, my final thoughts are be critical, ask questions, and when you hear about development projects or strategies, lagi nating dapat tatanungin, whose interests are we being served? And are we truly empowering the people? Or are we just reinforcing old power dynamics? Kasi tandaan natin lagi that development should be about dignity and equality and not about control.
I kind of want to, isiksik ko lang din kasi sometimes development is often masked as, something good. Kasi nga, development itself is a positive term. What do you think about that?
Development naman is positive talaga dapat. Pero kasi yung mga those on the top don't exactly make it in a way na may kita din ng mga tao na positive kasi nga iniisip lang nila kung anong importante para sa kanila instead of paano natin magiging better ang buong katauhan, di ba?
Yeah, and also, I'd like to add din, malaki din yung pinoportray na role ng media and communication with this. Kasi sometimes, media often namamas din niya yung true agenda ng development. Kaya kunyari sa political communication, yung isang politiko gusto niyang development, one of her or his campaign is about development, and often napopromote siya sa social media through mass media as something na dapat i-tolerate, i-encourage, or, i-practice. But really, may mga hidden agendas ang communication. So it's really significant for the people, especially for our listeners, to have a clear grasp and knowledge about development communication, especially the modernization theory. So napaka-insightful ng discussion natin today. Thank you so much, Ash, for sharing your expertise and personal insights. I hope our listeners learned as much as I did and you did today.
Yes, Glendy. Likewise, actually, it's been a pleasure, and I hope this sparks more conversations about how we truly can make development inclusive. Not just para dun sa magikinabang, but for everyone talaga. Kasi development is a necessity for all. Hindi lang talaga dun sa mga already developed na countries.
Yeah, so development is a necessity for all. And that's it for today's episode of Behind the Veil. Progress isn't about following someone else's path. It's about carving your own. Until next time, salamat sa pakikinig and stay curious. Bye!
Bye! Thank you so much!